Welcome to the second episode of The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy. I'm your host, Alinafe Mlamba, and in this episode, we will engage business journalist and economist Dumbani Mzale and Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences Associate Professor Bechani Chereni. Stay with us. But let's take a quick recap of our previous episode.
We have organized these demos just because the cost of living is just very high.
The economy currently is on its deathbed. The key players whom we entrust to run or manage our economy, they are failing terribly.
But what is the root of all this? Well, it all started when the Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority announced new pump prices last month with a 20% adjustment. Remember, this is the second episode of The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy, and I'm now joined by Dumbani Mzale, a journalist and an economist. Welcome, Dumbani. First of all, let's start with what is happening here locally. Not so long ago, things seemed to be fine, and some basic items were affordable. We can talk of things like cooking oil, fuel, and others. But today, it is a different story. From your point of view as a journalist and an economist, how could you explain the situation?
What is happening is that on the globe, we have inflation squeeze, if I may loosely use that word. Prices of goods and services have increased exponentially. And you might wish to know that Malawi is a net importer of goods and services. We don't influence the global prices. As such, we are just absorbing the heat from the globe. So it's not a strange phenomenon. This has been happening before because we are a victim of what I would say imported inflation. Things have gone up and on the international market, and the importers are importing things on a higher, margin, and this is also being passed on to.
So now, talking of events happening elsewhere, what impact has that had on our local economy?
It's obvious that COVID has had a dent on our domestic economy. Development, the supply chain has really been affected because it's an issue of demand and supply. COVID impacted heavily on manufacturers. So that also translated into the global market having few goods supplied and against a huge demand for those goods and services.
Now, Dumbani, do you see government getting things back to where they were? And again, some people have been asking government to find means to cushion the poor, and of course, we are also a majority. And still on that topic, do you agree with such ideas as an economist and as a business journalist? How can government go about it?
There are several options. The government uses several policies. There is fiscal policy, monetary policies, and other package of policies that government can use. But I know government is capable of cushioning its own people because that's its duty.
Moving on with our podcast, remember this is The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy. As mentioned, Bechani Chereni is an associate professor at the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences. The question can be, what is his analysis, considering that in the space of 4 weeks, 4 anti-government protests have centered on the current economic hardships?
Yeah, it is an indication of what is obtaining deep down in the economy. It is actually showing exactly what the people are feeling. People are looking for jobs. Jobs are nowhere to be seen, and therefore people are quite unhappy about that. It is also, the prices of goods have gone up, and therefore the cost of living has gone up, meaning that many people are finding it difficult for them to make ends meet.
Now, government has attributed the situation to the global economic landscape. What's your take on government's position?
Yeah, it's true. It's not only in Malawi that things are this bad. We know, for example, that even in the West, things are not nice there. Inflation has gone up, although their inflationary pressure may be different from ours, but because they don't necessarily face inflationary pressures like the ones they are facing, it is like a crisis to them. But then we must remember also that we import most of the commodities. When we are importing, we need to remember that we are also importing the high prices. In other words, our inflation is in fact imported. So because we are importing that inflation, it means that we are importing the high cost of living, and that is what is obtaining on the ground.
Some quarters are of the view that government is not doing enough to address the situation. What would you say?
Well, that's subjective. Because for things to change, we need to change our own appetite for imports. And that is not only the government, that's even for us as consumers. When somebody is saying that the government is not doing enough, people might have to go back and see in their closet how many clothes are in there that have been manufactured in Malawi. Maybe in their kitchen, how many utensils in there have been imported. If the appetite for imports is not going to be there, it won't be a government issue only. It is going to be an issue for all of us. So one may say that government is not doing enough, but like I said, it's just a subjective matter. Most of the problems can only be solved in the medium to long term. They are not short-term problems, or the solutions are not short-term at all.
As we wind up with our podcast, Dr. Cherini, from your point of view, what's next for our economy?
It's a challenge. Not only it's a challenge not only to the government. It's a challenge to all of us. We have talked so many times. We have written very nice documents. It is now time for us to see things happening on the ground. So it is an opportunity, in my view, an opportunity for everyone, private sector, public institutions, to sit down and say, where can I intervene? As we are intervening for us to profit here, we will actually be helping the economy. As the government will be swallowing a pride and come on to the party to industrialize the country, we are going to be changing the aspects of this country. So yes, indeed, things are not okay on the ground.
And that's what we had in this second episode of The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy. I've been your host, Alinafe Mlamba. Goodbye for now.